G'day everyone, I'm here with Vinay. Vinay is the head coach of Avia Performance, competing at this year's TSF Team Champs. Avia have competed at a number of our competitions in the past, so we're excited to have Avia back because I don't think they competed at the 2023 Team Champs. But
No,
we're
we
gonna,
did the one for lockdown, I think it was.
yeah, so it might have been a couple of years.
Yeah.
So glad to have Vinay on. How are you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. So, like I was saying, you missed the one in 2023. Then we had a 3.5 year hiatus before that because of
Yeah.
what shall not be named.
Mm.
But you guys are back, so we're excited to have you back. How's it feel to kind of have a team coming to the Team Champs this year?
Yeah, really good. The powerlifting crew in the gym has been really excited to actually do a team champ. So yeah, we're excited to bring a team. Training in the gym has been great for the guys. I think more than anything, everyone's just excited to jump on the platform as a team. Obviously, indicative of team champs, but powerlifting is such an individual sport. So for the guys to not only feel like they've got other people to compete with like they do at a normal competition, but to know that their result directly impacts their fellow lifters, I think is a really cool idea.
Excellent, man. That's good. It's like you said, it's indicative of the event. That's kind of
Yeah.
what we want to promote. I wanted to ask you. I mean, Avia's been around for a long time now. How long's the actual gym been open?
We've been open
I
since
think before us, right?
2016. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
so
we
a
were a
year
year
before
before
us.
you. Yeah.
Right, and you guys were. I think you might have even been at the end of your challenge in 2017 that we had in some small capacity, and then I think you were at the first Team Champs in a small capacity again. So you guys
Yes.
been
Yeah.
around. You've been around the block. What
Yeah.
was those early years like for you guys? And how have you kind of seen that change since then?
Yeah, so obviously 2016 we were just starting out, and you know what it's like starting a small business. You can have as much of a client base as you want, but you open up your own gym and things are very different. So obviously the gym's grown a lot since 2016, and in the powerlifting sense, we've always, had our feet in the water. But I think for us, just because we do dabble in a few other areas in terms of modalities of fitness, with athletic development, injury rehab being the two primary ones. I guess how involved we are in powerlifting does change, from time to time. Like last year, we probably didn't have as much often not often interest in powerlifting, but our we didn't take a team to nationals. We didn't want to do team champs. We just took a year off that. And I think, this year is going to be a really big year for our powerlifting team. And everyone's just excited to get their feet wet for the beginners, and for those that have a little bit more experience to do a few extra competitions.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think that was obviously noted even from the outside. Like Avia since the start has always run meets,
Yep.
run good meets. You've got competition equipment at your gym and stuff, and you've had some good lifters in the past. But you kind of weren't so involved. I mean, obviously there was a lot of political turmoil, so maybe that had
Yeah.
something to do with it as well. It didn't want to get so involved. But yeah, you guys are back. It felt like in the early days, at least I'm talking Team Champ specifically, it never felt like Avia were really like put their foot in the door and was like super
Yep.
keen to be there. Like not in a bad way, just like it was always a bit like, oh yeah, sure, we'll kind of participate. I think that's kind of
Yep.
reflective of the attitude that you guys have towards powerlifting. Like you're not a powerlifting gym per se. You're more like a you know boutique style gym like you've described that dabbles in a bit of powerlifting. However, this year it feels very much like the team that you're bringing and the energy that you guys are bringing is one of like, okay, cool, we have this arm of the business, like this arm of our brand is there is a powerlifting arm, and we want to kind of be semi-serious about that and be like, okay, cool, let's be competitive and let's like you said, we in the chat we had before we started recording, take it semi-seriously. Like you're not out there to win and dominate and be super competitive, but it does feel a little bit more like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think for us, having good, like we recently hired last year, and we hired someone that has a huge interest in powerlifting, and that's really helped me a lot, because for a long period of time, when you are completely inundated with work, there's only so much you can take on your plate. And now that I've been able to have someone around me that has such a keen interest in powerlifting and is really good at what he does, it's made my life a lot easier, and I think it's really reignited that want to be a bigger presence in powerlifting. So this year is going to be a lot of fun for the guys, but I really do think we're going to put up some competitive totals and give this challenges bracket a really good run for their money. And I'm actually really interested to see how we go. Comparing ourselves to people in the premier bracket, like I think we actually have a really good chance of taking a lot of people by surprise with the quality of our four guys and girls.
No, that's good to hear. It's like, yeah, I'm excited to hear that because obviously it's our first year of running this kind of two bracket system, and there was a little bit
Yep.
of pressure on me to obviously like divvy up everybody. I kind of try to go off previous results, last year's results, and whatnot. And I think actually the challenges bracket is a bit of a sleeping bracket. Well, not a sleeping bracket. I mean, there's actually some really freaking good lifters even in the challenges
Yeah,
bracket.
they really are.
Yeah, from you guys, which we'll go into in a moment. Yeah, none of the other teams actually have some really strong lifters, so I'm excited to see that. I want you to introduce your team. So, who have you got lifting for you? What weight classes are they in? And who's the head coach? Are you the head coach for the team, or
Yep.
is that someone else?
Yeah, so I'm the head coach for the team, and James Young will be helping me coach as well. And our team in chronological order of weight classes would go 56 kilo class. We've got Claudia, who I started coaching back in 2016. Then we have our weight class up from that. Our other female lifter is Emily Cano in the 82.5 kilo weight class, which is a weight class I'm really excited to watching her, Sia, and Evangeline battle out. And then we have our guys. We've got Madge in the 82.5 kilo weight class. And then, sorry, I forgot Felicia as well. She's in the 67.5 kilo weight class, which is, yeah, stacked. And that's going to be, yeah, a really fun one to watch and, yeah, to see who actually goes top six.
Right. So, pretty diverse there. I think you said you got three girls. Is that right? Did I mix that up?
Yeah, 3 girls and 1 guy. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So let's go through them briefly. So, Claudia, you said you've been coaching for a long time. And I know even her story is a little bit kind of in and out of powerlifting, kind of like much like Avia's, right? She was in it really deeply for a while, then maybe took a bit of a break.
Yeah.
How's her training going? I think this is her first meet back in quite a while, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. So Claudia's last comp would have been in 2019, I believe. And then obviously COVID happened. Her, passion for powerlifting started to wean off as it did for a lot of people. And then post-COVID, she obviously has been getting really busy with work. Powerlifting took a back seat. But yeah, her passion for powerlifting has been reignited. She's really excited to jump on the platform, but she's got a very different attitude, I guess, towards powerlifting now. Like, before, with less responsibilities in life and at a younger age, it was, maybe all consuming. But now watching her go about it has been really fun to watch because it's fun for her. Like, she comes into a training session, she's smiling, she's excited to deadlift, she's excited to squat. So her training is going really well. Um, she is training without any back pain or hip pain. She was, yeah, suffering a lot of little niggles throughout pretty much all of 2023. But yeah, it's been awesome to watch her in the gym. She's happy. She's loving training, and she's just enjoying the atmosphere in the gym, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. It's like you described. Maybe that kind of initial period in someone's lifting career and powerlifting career is filled with, it's like the honeymoon phase, like you're just so passionate, you're so into it, and
Yeah.
then you kind of mature. And I look at you as someone who's really mature in the lifting world. Like you've been around the block, you've seen that kind of like junior energy, I suppose.
Yeah.
I sometimes refer to as, and so it's good to see, like even from my point of view, like Claudia's kind of back and doing it in a way that's maybe a little bit more matured, a little bit more
Yeah.
grounded, a little bit more level headed. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
go on.
oh no, sorry, I was just going to move on to the next lifter.
Yeah, so Felicia 67.5.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about her. I know she's
Yeah.
competed much before, and I don't. She's not a beginner by any means. I just don't know a lot
No,
about her.
yeah, so Felicia's yeah, I mean for all four of these people I have a soft spot for them because I've known them for such a long time. So Felicia I've started coaching in 2018. I think, yeah, very start of 2018, and she's the best. She's one of the heart and soul members of our gym. And if there was one person that I'd probably want to represent our team, it'd probably be Felicia. Yeah, she embodies everything of Avia. So she's quite strong. Obviously, she's not your 420 to 400 and kind of 40 total in the 67s. I'd put her, maybe a rung below that, but her training's going really well. I mean, her best comp squat's 130. She squatted a lot more in the gym recently. She didn't compete all of last year as she was trying out for the Fireys, so we did a lot of running and just base strength work in the background while we built up her aerobic capacity. But she's got quite a strong deadlift as well. She'll probably pull in excess of that 170 kilos, which is still, nothing to sneeze at. Again, not
Oh, absolutely.
your 440 kilo total deadlift worthy, but yeah, she's doing quite well. And yeah, she is. Yeah, she's enjoying training, but she could potentially be a late out as she doesn't know her roster yet. And if she does get rostered on, she will have to work. So she might be one of those super switches, but the super switch may not quite be a Felicia.
Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of the clubs see a lot of um, value in trying to put in members. How do I say this? I know that a lot of the clubs, there's a lot of factors that go into choosing who your lifters are for the team champs.
yeah,
And of course, you want to pick the most competitive lifters. It's competitive in that sense. But I think, like you said, there is a bit of a soft spot you have for long stay members as well that have shown loyalty, because at the end of the day, these lifters are representing your brand, they're representing your gym, they're
yeah,
representing your club. And so someone like Felicia is obviously such a great name who's been around for like, what, 5 years at your gym. So it's
yeah,
like, I don't know, what an honor it would be to have her represent
yeah.
Avia. So hopefully she's not rostered to work on
Yeah, look, I
that
really
weekend.
hope not, but yeah, obviously life takes priority over a powerlifting competition. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'll tell you a story. This was a long time ago, maybe 2014. I was at a local comp at Hawthorne Powerlifting Center, and there was a lifter who was actually a really good lifter. Um, his name's escaping me right now. He's very competitive. I know he competed at a junior worlds equipped in like Puerto Rico in like 2011 or something
Yeah,
random like this. But anyway, the point is he was having a great day. He was lifting a raw. He was having an excellent day. 3 out of 3 squat, 3 out of 3 bench, was just on fire, and then he just disappeared. And everyone was like, "Where'd he go?" And he got called into work, so he had to leave the meet
yeah,
halfway because of a work thing. So it's like you say,
yeah,
sometimes life just gets in the way like that. And
yeah, man.
as a junior, I'm like, why would you leave a perfect day of powerlifting
Yeah,
and
man.
work? Like, tell work to stuff off. But yeah,
Uh,
now I
how are
understand.
those memories back in 2014 at Hawthorne, hey, when there was like 11 of us competing? That was the
Yeah,
best. I
dead
loved it.
silence, zero
Yeah,
atmosphere. Yeah, it
yeah,
was. That's what builds the resilience we have today.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I want to ask about who's the next lifter, the 82 and a half
Emily,
lifter. You've got Emily. That's
Emily
right. So
Cano. Yeah,
she's a powerhouse. I've seen her lifting before, and I think she's done
yeah,
1 or 2 meets before. But she's obviously super strong, and she's in a good weight class. What's
yeah.
the
So
story behind Emily?
Emily's done one competition. She did that last year, where she broke the squat record, and I think she broke the deadlift record or equaled Sia's potentially. So she totaled, I think it was 440 if my maths isn't too bad. It was a 180 squat, 185 pull, 75-ish bench, along those lines. So she's quite strong. But I know that Evangeline is going up a weight class for this. And obviously Evangeline's been around powerlifting pretty much the same as people like yourself and me, I think. Evangeline's very strong, and Sia's also extremely strong. So I'm excited to see that. But yeah, Emily's crazy.
She's not listed to lift, mate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know why I've had Sia in
well,
my
she
mind.
she
Was
lifted
she
last year.
okay? All right. There was another 82 that I was okay. Yep, that's my bad. I could have sworn I saw her on
You're
LiftingCast.
seeing ghosts, mate. You're scared.
Yeah, potentially. But yeah, Emily's awesome. So she came to Avia with James, and I think her best triple at the time was like 137. She'd always been quite inconsistent with training, but she'd always had a fair bit of raw strength.
Bit of
And
talent, yeah.
then yeah, we got her consistent with her training, and she ended up tripling like 160 before comp. So in about the space of 12 or 16 weeks, yeah, she added about 22 and a half kilos on her best triple. And that's just Emily. Like she just makes some, yeah, some crazy progress that um, people like myself can only dream of.
Right, so she's obviously a big talent there, and quite young, right? Quite inexperienced, at least young from a
Yes.
lifting point of view, from a career
Yep.
point of view. So
She was, yeah, extremely mature when she did her first competition. Like I was, yeah, I was so happy. I was really proud of her actually, the way she handled herself at her first comp. She was calm, composed, and yeah, she showed a lot of signs of a very mature lifter, which was, yeah, great to see.
excellent. Well, maybe she's a mainstay, and year on year, she can kind of help Avia push towards some good results. The
Yeah.
last lifter is your guy Marge. I don't really know much about Marge either, so do you want to give me a bit of a
Yeah, so
rundown of who he is and what he's like?
Manager's been at the gym very similar time to Felicia. And yeah, we used to call him the Prince of Avia. He was Mr. Consistent. He couldn't really put a foot wrong. Strong kid. Again, doesn't have a massive interest in powerlifting, or hasn't had a massive interest in powerlifting for the last few years. He's just done some really general training a few times a week, all still very structured, but he's another one that's just extremely strong naturally. And he had about a 2-year hiatus of deadlifting. We had an in-house max out a couple of years ago, so he did 12 weeks of deadlifting for that and pulled 260 at about 83 kilos. And his best pull before that was 252, I think it was. And yeah, I'm expecting him to do something really similar for this comp. So again, a lot of people on that list probably don't know him. Obviously, the Josh Joyces, the Franks, the Jacob Skeppises, the Dennises, they're the kind of names that a lot of people will know. And, these are the kind of people that will go, top 4. But I think Madge is going to give some of those guys a really good run for their money. And just, I think, take a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah, I think like you described, like the 82.5 kilo class is just so dense.
Man, it's going to be sick to watch. That and the 67s, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. Now, you touched on it before, like you guys are going to give the Challengers run a really good Challengers bracket, a really good run for their money.
Yeah.
And you're actually the first coach I've interviewed from the Challengers bracket,
Cool.
so I'm excited to chat to you a little bit about that. Obviously, this year we've split it up into two days of lifting, and when we had to do that, I kind of had to decide how we're going to do that. Are we going to put the traditional run with lightweights on day 1 and heavyweights on day 2? And me being the creative that I am, try to look for other ways, other solutions, other ideas that could be a little bit more interesting. And the issue with doing it the traditional way is that you'd have this really tight finish in the last session that determined the whole placings of the whole day.
Yeah.
And you're kind of given this extra bias towards the heavyweight lifters. Like the heavyweight guys suddenly become a much more important session, which is still going to be the case. But the way that we try to do it is kind of like keep the lifters and the teams that are in a similar, I suppose, league, literally, together and separate out the better teams, but also to give those teams in the challenge bracket something to fight for, because one of the issues that I've really tried to address in this meet, which I think I've done a pretty decent job of, we'll see how it all pans out, is I want every lifter at all times to feel like they've got something to fight for. I never liked meets where the guy coming 8th felt like, well, what's the point? Because I'm going to come, if I try hard, if I'm going to come 6th. Or if the team that was coming in at, let's say out of 22 teams, the team that's coming in at 15th, what's the point? Because even if we come in at 14th or 13th, it makes no difference. What I've tried to set up is that if you're in the Challengers bracket, you've got something to fight for. If you can finish top 4, you get promoted to Premier bracket the year after.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you, like, you've only ever seen the post online, and you're probably still wrapping your head around it. What was your kind of initial impressions, and how are you guys feeling about the teams that you've got to face in the Challengers bracket?
Yeah, I liked the idea. I think the thing that I liked most was to see how many teams are actually signing up. So I think initially, I don't know what it is at the moment, if anyone's pulled out, but there were 22 teams. So which means
teams,
that 88 lifters, which is fantastic. So it's good to see this many people involved in powerlifting to start with. Then the contenders in the Premier bracket makes total sense. I think the only thing I was trying to wrap my head around, and I think I've got this right, is that if you were to win the Challengers bracket, and say for example you were in the Challengers bracket and you won the whole thing, you can't take home the grand prize, right? You have to be in the Premier bracket to take home the grand prize.
No,
Is that correct?
you can win the whole thing from day 1.
Okay, fantastic. Because I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, because that was my impression, exactly what you said, and they said no, you can't win the whole thing if you're in the Challengers bracket. And I was like, my initial impression was it actually reminded me of USAPL Nats, the way you're running it, how you have your primetime session, and then you have the rest of the guys that compete before that. And if you're in the primetime session, you have the advantage of seeing what everyone else has done, but you can still win it. As I think it was one of the juniors
Say
in
flight
maybe
B
one of
or
the,
whatever.
yeah, he was a junior, like a 19-year-old guy in one of the 90 or 100 kilo classes that actually won nationals last year, and that was amazing to see. So I'm actually really excited to see what some of the guys can do in the Challengers bracket, and really start to push up in the Premier bracket. And as you said, it really makes you want to do better when you know that you're in that Challengers bracket. And obviously, like we'll touch on this later, but I think a team like the Chads, for example, like they have a genuine shot of winning the entire thing from the Challengers bracket. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes. But I do like the idea. And I do like the incentives that it gives, because it's human nature, right? If you're in the Challengers bracket, you want to prove yourself and you want to be promoted. Like, it's just yeah, it's tapping into our natural instincts as humans, and yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So, and it's glad I do plan on making some posts in the next few weeks, especially as we get a little bit closer, clarifying some things, answering questions, because there's a little bit of confusion, understandably.
Yep.
Doing some more animations and posts, and maybe a discourse explaining some of those kind of finer details. One of the interesting things as well, and I'm going to touch on what you said just there about the Chads in a minute, is top 7 stay in the Premier, or top 7 are in the Premier bracket for sure. Yep. And then the top 4 are in from the challengers are also into the Premier the year after, so that makes up the 11.
Yep.
But there is a good chance, well, it's almost inevitable, that some of those teams in the top 4 of the challengers are actually also in the top 7 of the Premier.
Yes.
Well,
yep.
not of the Premier, of the whole thing, right? So like you said, the Chads could win the whole thing, for example.
Yep.
And so there's going to be an overlap. So let's say of the 7 of the top 4, maybe 2 of them are from the challengers bracket. That actually frees up 2 spots below. And so you could be a challenger team that finishes 5th or 6th, but if the challengers are actually that competitive, you might even, finishing 5th or 6th, sneak your way into the Premier bracket for the year
Premier
after.
Bracket,
so,
yeah.
And so that's kind of like going back to what I said before about there's always something to fight for, because you just never know how it's all going to pan out. And I really want there to be that kind of pressure and that kind of like not instinctive, that kind of incentive.
Yes.
At all points.
Yeah.
Now you kind of said that the Chads have a chance of winning the whole thing. They're obviously a super strong team. At the same time, they, it was a very similar thing happened in a way at 2019 Team Champs. And what happened there was JPS had a really strong team of individual lifters. They had the 3 Skepises, Jacob, Sam, and Mia, and they had Pearson. But Jacob lost in his session against Ben Sellers, and Mia lost in her session against Jules.
Yeah.
And so the winning team was actually us, TSF, although if you looked at the average lifters, like their average dots, for example, was much higher than our average dots. But all it took was like they lost here and lost there. The funny thing about the challengers is that they're a very strong team, undoubtedly, on an individual level, but all it takes is a couple of losses here and there, and they do fall down the rankings. Tom is not, I'm not going to say he's a clear favorite to win in his class. Very strong, could win, but he might not. He might come second or third. Similarly, Remy, clear favorite in his class. I think, is that the class with Hung?
Oh, no, he's with Hung, yeah.
Right, and so good chance that he loses to Hung. Similarly in the 82.5, like you described before, a lot of strong lifters in there. And so they are a strong team, but at the same time, I don't know, it's just so unpredictable in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. And that's part of the intrigue of Team Champs this year is, in a lot of your interviews, you've asked people, who do you think you're going to win? And I mean, there's not a single person that is sure of anything. And I think at the moment, like they're all 100%, like nothing's set in stone, because 21 days out, I'm going to log into LiftingCast and I reckon I'm going to see a different competition because I know for a fact that there are a lot of placeholders on LiftingCast, and the problem is that I can identify a few people. I'm like, yep, this is a placeholder, this is a placeholder, but I don't know who they're going to get replaced with. I don't know how strong they're going to be. I don't know. Maybe the 67s get diluted. Maybe some of the 67s go to 75s. Maybe some of the 67s go to 60s, which again is also another stack weight class. But then again, maybe some of the 60s go to 56. Like there's only one person in the 48s, and there are no stupid coaches out there, right? So you see the 48s with one lifter and you're like, okay, fantastic. This is an opportunity. So I think some of those outlier weight classes of the 48s and then the very the heavyweight males and females is going to get filled up. And where do they come from? Do they come from existing lifters in the competition, or do they come from new lifters? So yeah, to make predictions at the moment is, I'm not too fussed on predictions.
Near on impossible.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're wasting your time, or if you're spending your time really trying to think about who you're going to target now, just wait until 21 days out, because we're going to see 88 very different lifters potentially.
I'm looking forward to. I've got blocked out on my calendar actually the Friday.
I was going to say your admin on 3 weeks out is going to be huge.
I think I've got the rules set as you got until 11:59. I might make it you got until 5 p.m. so that way I can block out. I can block out 5 till 7. I can sit on my laptop and just put in all the names and make all the changes, make a graphic and on Canva and make a post and stuff.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's going to be a lot of changes, and what you described there, there's no stupid coaches. There's all these opportunities, and that's one of the things also that I'm really looking forward to. Like I actually really want a nice even distribution. Like ideally, every weight class has 6 lifters in it or 7 lifters in it. And each class is competitive in that sense. Of course, the 13 class lifters and the 67 women with 12 or 13 lifters in it is awesome. But I would love to see a bit more of a spread, because it does make each class a little bit more exciting in that sense. And I think you're right. You said, especially this year where there is a little bit more prize money than there has been in the year before, there's a bit more incentive to do those things. Whereas in the past, you might just kind of let it go and go, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Like, we'll just pop it on the chin. I wanted to ask you about the super switches.
Yes.
You've referenced obviously Felicia might have to swap out for a legitimate reason, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, any reason is legitimate.
Yeah.
If you were in that situation and you had to say to one of your lifters, hey, I've looked at the roster, one of your lifters is fucking pumped, man. Like, take Claudia, for example. She's super pumped to be representing the team, all going well, training's going well, excited to train. How do you go to one of your lifters and say, hey, I've had a look at the roster, I think, so-and-so is going to be a better better chance for us, so we're going to swap you out. Like, that's a hard conversation to have as well.
Yeah, it's
and I think some coaches wouldn't do that, almost from not a moral point of view, but almost from a sentimental point of view. Like, it's such a hard conversation.
Yeah, I think so. But I think like it almost is a moral point of view. Like my mind goes to like I have, and everyone has their own moral and ethical compass, right? And yes, it's just a powerlifting competition, but the principle of putting people to represent your club is huge. And if you've prepped someone, for the last, say, 12, 16 weeks and said, cool, you're going to do team champs, and then 4 weeks out, or, you look at the roster and you're like, oh, actually, no, this isn't the right call. Potentially that's on you as a coach, and that's something that you need to cop on the chin, as opposed to then taking your lifter out and subbing them out for someone else. But again, that's just me, and that's the way we run our things at Avia. Like, I'm not going to think, okay, cool, I've got this lifter. They're probably going to be like, if I had a 48 kilo lifter, for example, and in hindsight, I thought they're going to be a better fit than, say, someone like Claudia, I'm not going to take her out to put that 48 kilo lifter in. I've made my bed, and now I'm going to sleep in it. I told Claudia she was going to be in, and that's the onus on me as a coach. Like, maybe that's my mistake. But I think for a lot of other clubs out there, that is going to be something that they look at, especially the clubs that have one thing in mind and one thing only, which is, say, the 4.5K. They are going to have some hard conversations and say, cool, like, I know you've been excited and you are still going to max out on the weekend of the 9th and 10th, but unfortunately that's not going to be at Team Champs. But yeah, that's a hard conversation that a lot of coaches are going to have with their lifters. But yeah, that's not something that I'll be doing. If I do have any switches, it will be only injury for the reason that, touch wood, everyone's injury free at the moment. But it literally at the moment, it looks like Felicia's the only one that we might have to switch out for. And that's not because I don't want her in the team or she's not going to do well enough. That's just because her job comes first.
Of course. It's interesting because I really appreciate you sharing what you just said about, you wouldn't do that. That's not kind of the way that you'd like to operate, swapping someone out the last minute for tactical reasons. One of the interesting things about the comp is that exact aspect of it. I remember stories from, when I used to follow the AFL a lot more closely than I do now. A player's played every game of the season. They've played all 22 games. They've played every final, and they get to the grand final, and they're just out of form. And the coach says, "Sorry, you're not playing this one.
Yeah,
we've put someone else in." And that makes that's a news article and a whole thing, because this loyal player has been swapped out, and there's a well, they're going to do what's right for the team. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's such a hard decision, and that's a bigger level. That's a professional level. That's where players are getting paid big money, and those decisions are much more important. But this is kind of on that continuum somewhere along there, right?
Yeah, I think the only difference being is that in your squad of players, they know that there's never a certainty in their team, right? So they know that they could be swapped out at any minute. As a team sport, they've got, say, a pool of 40 people and only X amount of players can play on the day. But I think the difference between that and something like Team Champs is unless you've already had that conversation with your lifter saying, hey, most likely you're going to be in the team, but I won't know until 3 weeks out. That's a different story, because then you've given them the understanding that there always is a potential that they're going to be subbed out. But if you've gone to someone and you said, yes, you're going to be you're going to be competing at Team Champs, and then you're going to pull them out without that prior knowledge that there is a chance that they'll be swapped out, I think that's where the issues arise.
Yeah, I think like in the AFL setting, the teams are selected every week fresh, whereas you're saying you've already selected the team, now you're making changes.
Correct.
It's actually interesting. One idea I've had, as you know, I'm an ideas machine, is for a future meet is to go, say, Team Champs, you nominate 4, and from the beginning, like at the initial nominations, you nominate 2 subs, and you can only sub between those 2 subs, for example, and you can't just draw from your whole pool. And that way, that kind of restricts that idea of, those weird tactical kind of decisions or weird, super switches that you get last minute.
I like that
Um,
idea, and I think you have a team of 6 and 4 will be there on the day. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think it would put it's a whole different level of tactics that compared to Team Champs this year, where in reality all we needed to do was email you with 4 random John Smiths, and that was it. And it's like, hey, there's no onus on me as a coach right now. I can just email JP 4 people, and I know that I'm in Team Champs, as opposed to cool. Let's make a decision 16 weeks out as to what is going to be
right.
the best decision. Yeah.
Right, and also like having those subs does protect you against injuries because that's a natural part
Correct.
of training and
Correct.
peaking. But it also means that there isn't this kind of like chaotic jostle, and that's just from my end as a meet director, just constantly learning and coming up with other ways to mitigate. What happens is, like with anything, especially in sports, the lifters and the coaches and whoever it is, they find ways to work around your little rules, and then new rules have to be created to block those,
that's
that
business,
cheekiness.
right? So
That's life, that's business.
Yeah.
People find ways to sneak around, and you're like, oh, I've got to create a solution, and then it's natural selection. They find a new way to sneak around it, and then you got to find a new solution, and there's just iterations constantly. Yeah, that's just how it is. Look, that was a great conversation. I'm really glad to have spoken to you and kind of gotten your insights on how Avia are going, and I respect your opinion. I've obviously been around the game a long time. You're very intelligent, so it's nice to hear what you've had to say about your team and about how you view things. Before I let you go, obviously I do need to grab a definitive prediction so we can tally it all up and see who was right.
Yeah.
Challenge bracket first of all. Who's winning, and if you can name even the 4 teams that would get promoted, and who's winning the whole thing, obviously.
Yeah, cool. So I think if we go challenges bracket first, I'm going the Chads to win that. And then I think coming top 4, we've got obviously the Chads. I think that David Barros' team will come top 4. Yeah, I think the Panthers will also come top 4, and I think we will. That's my prediction for the challenges. I think the Panthers have a couple of really smart calls with their weight classes as well. So that's my 4 for the challenges bracket. And then for the overall, I think the Chads are going to win the whole thing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're taking it out. I think if they can all, compete and, on that day 1, just put some really good 8 for 9 totals as a bare minimum out and put some real pressure on the premier bracket. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So I think they're going to win. And then coming in second and third in no particular order between the 2, I think will be Elemental and Melbourne Strength Culture. I think there are so many strong teams in that premier bracket. The other teams that would come close would be people like Lou Lift and Sim Strength, I think. And Apex also have a very strong team. But I just think that, that'd be my top 3. Chads, Elemental, and Melbourne Strength Culture.
Dude, that's an awesome prediction. I love to hear you just want to name them all, right? You're just like, oh, and also these guys, oh, and also those guys.
Yeah.
They're also really close. I think the interesting thing as well is, I actually want to mention this earlier, and I kind of forgot to say so, but about the injuries that I wanted to just quickly touch on, is that, you're a meet director and you've directed many meets before. You often say from the entry list about 12 weeks out, you get about 10% drop off. And that drop off often comes from
potentially even more than that, to be honest. I reckon you get 10 to 20% of drop offs with injuries. Yeah,
with injuries, right? And so part of actually the strategy for team champs is managing a healthy list, because if you get hurt and you have to pull out, that's a really big. You're basically out. Like if you lift with 3 lifters, like you're not even going to be looked at, and
no, not this year. Absolutely not.
And so it's such an interesting thing as well, because a team like the Chads, they're a little bit fragile in that sense. With you guys, you've got a list behind you that you can swap in. A lot of the clubs, obviously, like us, Strength Culture. If someone gets hurt in the next few weeks, it's a relatively easy. Okay, we got to pick someone else. At least you're going to sub in. Your team's a little bit more fragile in that sense, so it'll be a little bit harder. I'm looking forward. I'm actually going to be interviewing one of the guys from the Chads in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that.
I'm excited to see it.
Thanks for your time, mate. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to have this conversation and help us kind of promote what's going to be a really fun comp. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the day, and thanks for having me on again.
All right. All the best, mate.
Take care.